And so, and also, I welcome you to use the chat box. My Confident Tech Help will be saving the chat box as well. So if there's any questions that you think would be appropriate for a Q&A that we could also attach to the video, or I might do some summary notes from this conversation, just so folks who couldn't make it real time can also benefit from what's shared today. So I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq, and that the peace and friendship treaties, they do cover all of the maritime provinces, and that we are on the land of Mi'kmaq, Maliseet, Passamaquoddy, and I may be ignorant, so I might be missing some acknowledgement that that is due, and if so, please put it in the chat box, because then we can learn together. So welcome, Doaa, and I did put your bio and your great letter and your impressive CV in the invitation, so I won't go into that today. I just invite people to look back to the blog posting and read up, and I'd love to turn it over to you now.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. As I said, I'm excited to meet people and see the faces of the people that I am emailing. It's very good. I think there is a positive aspect of COVID that we still can see people across Canada, not face to face, but I still see the friendly faces, and that makes me quite happy. I am not prepared with a specific thing to talk about, but I want to open the floor for whoever had a question, or we can discuss things together. So that would be awesome. I want to hear from you also, like you want to hear from me. So it would be awesome. I'll leave it to you, Andrea, Lisa, to see how we should organize or coordinate the questions or discussion topic.
Okay, well, and I welcome participants if you'd like to ask a question in French. We will be translating, and we want to do an active offer of bilingual participation. So I'll just start with that. Is there anybody who would like to pose a question?
It's Karen. I have one. Sorry,
yes, please.
Did I interrupt?
Hicks. Yes, President of New Brunswick chapter.
I was just wondering, Doaa, if you got a lot of feedback on the strategic plan?
Yes, we did post the strategic plan for chapters, as you know, chapter presidents, and for the board members, and we did the final tweaking. Yes, people were very engaged, which is great. We got lots of great feedback about things that we might have been missing, because when your eyes and heads are in something for a long time, you don't get where you're vague. Yeah. That was very awesome to get the feedback of the people who are not involved in the creation. I mean, as of this morning, we are going to be publishing it very soon, because we incorporated all the changes, and it should be going out to members on our website, and I would send an email to chapter presidents with it as an attachment, and to the fellows, the different stakeholders of CES internally.
Nice, thank you.
Nancy, did you want to pose your question?
Sure. It's kind of a get to know you question a little bit, Doaa. And I mean, I'll share with others on the line. I've really had the opportunity to get to know Doaa over the past 3-4 years being on the national board. And as you're aware, you know, Doaa has held multiple positions there, from professional learning to the treasurer, and now she's president. And I've always, I've shared this with Doaa, so I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, but I've always found her to be very inspiring, and she brings such a perspective to the table and a contribution to our board discussions, and a different voice sometimes that I've come to rely on, like, oh, what does Doaa think? Like, whenever we're having conversations. And I guess in preparing for our webinar today, I was reviewing you know, your background, Doaa, and sometimes I forget about all the amazing things that you did before you came to Canada. And I wonder if you could share a little bit how your work in evaluation internationally influences how you lead evaluation for Canadian Evaluation Society here in Canada. Like, what are the opportunities, the differences, the gaps, the pieces that you feel like you bring to Canada because of, your previous experience? I think I saw somewhere 9-10 years in international development evaluation. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, my background before I come to Canada was focused mainly on international development. That's where most of my degrees were in. I studied economics, international development economics, and I love research. I am an inquisitive person by definition, and I think it's a good quality for an evaluator researcher to ask, not to challenge the status quo. So that was always me. So I worked on several evaluation projects funded by the USAID, by the World Bank, in developing countries. When I came to Canada to work on the file of international development, evaluation again and research, I found that was the time when the late CETA was eliminated from the federal government, and Canada didn't have real involvement as before in the file of international development evaluation and research. There's still a bit, but not as it was. So I was like, okay, I want to stay in Canada. I want to work in research and evaluation, but all my background was in international development policies that governs the exercise. But then when I think to myself, I found that when you are a researcher or an evaluator, you actually don't know how much you know. You have a transferable set of skills. And not because I studied file X doesn't mean that I can apply the same set of skills to file Y. So what I saw is that based on my experience benefits me a lot about how to collect data from people from different cultures, people from different income status, people who don't understand your language. How can you adapt that? How can you be tactful in conducting interviews from people from different culture? That helped me a lot when I came to Canada, because in a way, we're all coming from a different background, different cultures, and I cannot pose the same question, for example, to person X like I do pose it with person Y. It can be offensive sometimes, right? So this is at the data collection front, how to be tactful and adapt what you're saying to what you want from different people. Added the reporting structure, of course. I learned about Canada's priorities and how we align the evaluation findings to align with the priorities of the different communities we're evaluating. And that again was something I developed while working in international development, because I worked on different countries. And yeah, the word poverty, you hear poverty, but when you evaluate poverty programs in one country, poverty has a different definition in a different country. I worked a long time on evaluating poverty alleviation programs of the World Bank in Egypt. And the word poverty there means deprived villages, people who do not have access to sewage systems, to clean water, kids have malnutrition. But when I studied poverty, I mean, a couple of years after in Bahrain and in the Gulf area, I found that poverty means that I don't have enough income to buy meat weekly, for example, or buy meat for my kids every month. So, but there's clean house, clean water, clean air, that's basics. We're not negotiating that. So when I came to Canada, of course, poverty exists everywhere, but the definition changes. And being an evaluator, I was able to adapt, to use the skill of learning to see the same word from a different angle and from different culture perspective. I'm not sure if this answers your question, but I do have lots of stories about evaluation in different countries.
Thank you. I would just follow up on one of the points you made, Doaa, and maybe you can reflect a little further on this at some point as well. You mentioned about when you first arrived in Canada, becoming familiar with the priorities for evaluation in Canada. I'd be interested on your perspective on how the priorities for evaluation are changing given the current situation, and your position as a federal public servant as well. So, and I'll just try to be quiet and stop taking all the time.
Okay, Nancy. Okay, Nancy. So yeah, the priorities. When I came to Canada 15 years ago, evaluation was added as a function, at least in the places that I worked at. I worked at the municipal level and the federal level governments in Ottawa, the city of Ottawa. So I worked on evaluation and research. But I didn't feel that evaluation was added in these organizations as a function of importance. The number of people who get hired to this function were not too many or enough to capture all the projects and investigate all the questions that should be investigated to inform development of new programs that actually mean a lot to the target audience. So maybe because it was new back then, or the debate about what is the importance and the use of evaluation was not that big. As I started working in different organizations here, I found that, okay, there is a priority now. There's something called evaluation, and yeah, we saw the merit of it. Decision makers in certain organizations started asking about what would evaluation tell me here about this, how should I do it? So it gradually developed and evolved as an evidence-based piece that decision makers, I might not be a subject matter expert in a certain program or a certain community, but let me see what the recommendation of this evaluation is telling me. And I've seen actually senior management asking this particular question, which for me was, oh yeah, good transition or good knowledge, and the priority changed, or evaluation now changed from the units, where when we do have a budget cut, these are the first people to lay off because what they are contributing to. No, we at least have to have a unit of evaluation because there's a merit of doing that. What is the merit? It differs from one organization to another. For me personally, I currently, with the current situation of COVID, I see a bit that, yeah, evaluation is very important and still important to help us respond and be flexible to respond to these sudden changes and new environment we are in. We need somebody to tell us how to do it. And how to do it, we need to collect data, we need to know how can we cater for the needs of the different people who are impacted differently. We always hear the word, we are all in that together, but no, we are not all in that together. There are people who are much more impacted than others. And without investigation, evaluation, assessment, consultation, digging into research questions, we cannot really sure to do it well. However, I've seen that given other priorities, because while you're investigating, you also need to create programs that helps mitigate the risks that evolved due to COVID. Some people are taking a back seat on evaluation and directing some of the funding that was previously allocated to evaluation to actual interventions rather than evaluating. So evaluation, unfortunately, and that may be my personal opinion, is with COVID, it's becoming more of a light touch. And I hope we will go back to where it was after we pass this time. And that's, again, my personal opinion. I might be wrong.
Thanks. I feel like I'm in that kind of like the journalistic thing when we're interviewing the premiers, and or you know, and it's kind of like you have one question and one follow-up. So yeah, to continue.
I have a feeling Andrea Lisa is going to send this recording to CBC. You're muted, Andrea Lisa. You're muted.
Oh, thank you. Actually, there's one person who's joining by phone. I'd like them to just maybe check if they could mute their mic, because you're taking over the screen from time to time. If we could just have that happen, or maybe the person, my competent IT support could actually mute the person who's on the phone until it's time that they actually want to say something. Thank you.
Sorry, I have a construction happening in my building. If you hear any noise, it's my head.
We hear you. We hear you great. So, is there another question for Doaa?
Yes, I have a question. Doaa, you mentioned 3 priorities that you would like to move forward, and maybe if you can speak to the last one, professional development, and what was the professionalization of evaluation.
Yeah, that's that we have been in conversation with chapter presidents lately about, and Nancy is the head of the PLC. She can actually add if I forget anything. With COVID happening, we had to adapt, and very fast, right? We for a long time, since the beginning of E-Institute, it has been seen by chapters as the property of national, and we are not touching it. We're providing our own in-person courses, local courses, right? So when we had a kind of all forced to move on an electronic platform, now there's more benefits. As I always say, COVID also came with benefits. We are now collaborating towards how can we coordinate our efforts to work together and all benefit from E-Institute as an asset of CES at all chapters and national. How can we all offer our materials to people beyond the borders of Canada? It's an electronic platform. It doesn't have to be confined to Canadians only. It's to evaluators everywhere. How can we align our communication plan? We need to have a communication strategy, marketing, promotion strategy, so that all chapters are promoting the Institute courses, all chapters are contributing to what is on this platform, marketing it locally, or if they, and how they can contribute in a PDF offering in another chapter if you don't get more audience at your chapter. So all of these, we already started conversation, a good conversation. There's lots of options and scenarios with the presidents and PD reps call. I think a couple of weeks ago, we had lots of engagement and people had genuine interest in making this happen. So I see a positive impact of COVID in the development of the professional development courses and opportunities. I see more collaboration among the chapters that come out of it as a byproduct, which is all what we have been looking for. We don't want to work in silos. We want to work as one coherent organization. So I see some work happening here. More will be communicated later. And I am happy to be a facilitator at this table or to facilitate this coming together to do something new to the members, or offer PD opportunities that would benefit everybody from east to west. So yeah, it's happening. We're working on it. Nancy, if I missed anything, please jump in.
No, I think you captured quite a bit of it. So I think it's also, I agree with you. You know, through COVID, there's been kind of an increased appetite to work collaboratively to have an impact and to create value and benefit for members. And I think another piece that we're thinking about in terms of professional learning anyway is about creating equities, not just like how can we all work together to, like, you know, at the chapter level, but to be able to deliver professional learning opportunities in a way that's accessible to as many members and even non-members who we're hoping to recruit as possible. So yeah.
Thank you. Is there another question for Doaa?
I'm not sure if I have a question, but I just like to, I don't know any of you other than Karen, of course, which I can't see, but I'd just like to introduce myself before I have to leave. I have been I feel almost like an external person here, not knowing anybody and not knowing very much what's happening and what's going on in evaluation. But I have been on the board for some time, and I was one of the 3 persons who developed the credentialing system for evaluation, for the Canadian evaluation. And I also am not from Canada, and I was wondering where Noah is from and how long she has been in Canada.
Okay, yeah, I think after I circle a round table would be good just to know who's online and which chapter they belong to. So I am originally. Any guessing where I could be from? I have
Egypt.
Egypt.
I'm guessing Egypt.
It is in the profile. Yes, I am Egyptian. I have dual citizenship, Egyptian and Canadian. I've been in Canada for 15 years. I came here mainly to do my PhD in economic policy. And then Canada grew on me, and I decided to become Canadian and settle here and take it as my home, and I've never regretted it. It's an awesome country, and I'm happy to be a contributor to whatever I can do to the country. So I am from Egypt. I'm still Egyptian too.
Yeah, I have been in Egypt and visiting friends. We have friends in Egypt. That's why I probably guessed right.
Okay, that's good. And Lisa, do you mind if we do like a round
Let's go
table?
right into the round table, and let's start with Brigitte Maia.
Yeah, well, there's not much about me that I have to say that I haven't said, but I'm from New Brunswick, and I used to be New Brunswick president as well. And like I said, have been involved with the national and have been on the joint committee for evaluation. What is, of course, not joint committee? It's what is it called again? Anyway, whatever. You probably know what I mean. For evaluation, educational evaluation, and yeah, and it was very much involved in setting up the credentialing system. And I'm still working, even though I'm also retired, but I'm still working in evaluation. And right now I'm doing evaluations with Native people, not with Native people, but with DFO and the natives, and how that interaction is going. That's what I'm doing at this moment. Yeah.
You're muted, Andrea Lisa.
Would you like to share some more of your origin story and how it matters to your practice as part of our roundtable?
I have been in Canada for a long time, but when I was in Germany, I certainly didn't. I'm from Germany. I don't know whether I said that, but I certainly didn't do evaluations when I was in Germany. I didn't even do evaluations initially when I was in Canada. I worked as a psychologist for a long time. I have had it. And when I worked for the Department of Health in New Brunswick, that's when I started in evaluation, because I just flowed in a sense into it. I didn't have much education in evaluation other than the research that I had done for my thesis. And then it became more and more evaluation, and then I joined the Canadian first New Brunswick Evaluation Society, and then Canadian Evaluation Society, and then suddenly I was an evaluator.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to go next? May we just go alphabetically, or?
Actually, do you mind if I jump in, Andrea Lisa? It's Sandra Curry.
Sandra, please do. Sandra is the president of CES PEI, and I'm so glad that you're co-hosting today. Sandra, please introduce yourself.
I'm very happy to introduce myself to the attendees. I am the chapter president for PEI, and I'm very much enjoying this discussion. I hope it wasn't my mic that was on. I am on my way to an appointment, actually, that I had to reschedule twice already. So I just couldn't just didn't have the heart to reschedule it again. So I wanted to introduce myself and say hi to everyone, because I am going to have to head off in a second to my appointment. But this is very enjoyable, and I'm very glad that you're recording this, because I think there is a lot of information here that people will enjoy hearing.
Wonderful. So
I can go next.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's in alphabetical order, but I see myself next to Brigitte, so I'll go next in that order. I'm a member of New Brunswick CES chapter, and I've been for a long time, with a brief interruption while I was away in the north. I've been involved in evaluation for about 8 years in different provinces and territories. I enjoy it very much. I'm not sure if my origin being Russian has any effect on what I do. I certainly didn't do any of that when I was in Russia. I was a young student. Yeah, I guess it's kind of started when I was studying at Memorial University in geography. That I've started reading a lot of evaluation literature and flown into it. Yep, that's it for me.
Thank you so much. It's funny because as an outsider with familiarity of a culture or of a language, sometimes an outsider can see how a person's culture and how the environment that they grow up in and how they're sort of shaped, how that absolutely influences how they approach their work. And we don't necessarily see it ourselves, which is part of the reflective practice. So thank you for sharing that. Who would like to go next?
I can go next. Hi, Doaa. I'm Florence Tarrant. I am a member of the Nova Scotia chapter, a former board member of the Nova Scotia chapter, and I'm faculty in the Faculty of Management at Dalhousie University, and I teach intro program evaluation course to Masters of Public Administration students.
Florence also worked very closely with Rob Chatwin Doaa to work on the bylaws for the Nova Scotia chapter, which I'm going to facilitate this intro. Dorian has just led some finalization on that, so maybe we could ask Dorian to introduce herself next as kind of looking at the connection there and helping you connect with some of our members.
Hello. So Dorian Watts. I'm the VP of the Nova Scotia chapter. And so I've been involved in the chapter in Nova Scotia for about 5 years now, to varying extents. So yeah, we did just work on the bylaws. So we have those revamped. And so up next for that piece is actually having a full member meeting so that we can vote on accepting the revised bylaws. And then of course with Rob's help, we are also working on policies, procedures. There's a third P that I'm blanking on.
Practices, policies?
Practices? I can't remember. But we have
use the AP3, right?
Yeah. So with Rob's help, we have those drafted. Processes. Thanks, Evan. So we are excited to be, bringing sort of some of these pieces to the work so that we have those guidance documents to help us in how we, not only sort of what we do, but how we do our work. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
How about Dorian? You nominate somebody to introduce themselves, and then we just go around like that, just to speed it up.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know, there's a connection in that I was the first real evaluation fellow with Nancy. And so the logical up next to me, Evan, Evan was the next fellow. So I think it makes sense to send to Evan next.
Sure, sounds good. Hi, Evan Ponsley here. I am on the board of CES Nova Scotia. I also work in our provincial government in the Department of Labour and Advanced Education. I'm an evaluation consultant there in the skills and learning branch. So work a lot with like workplace education, workplace training, that sort of stuff, getting people into the labor market and helping them upgrade and so forth where applicable. So yeah, maybe I'll just keep it there, short and sweet.
Oh no, I'm outing you, Evan. 2 weeks ago, something very important happened to Evan.
Oh, sure. Yes, and I'm also a very recent credentialed evaluator. I got my certificate in the mail, and yes, I see the applause. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes, I've been deemed competent finally, Nancy.
So in case anybody else hasn't been watching, Nova Scotia is just so densely populated relative to anywhere else in terms of our CEs. Like our membership is so, I think we've got like a huge margin of CEs in our membership relative to any other place in the world. And so that is a challenge for us to dilute our CEs by recruiting other members who are not CEs yet, but let's also keep up the great work with professionalizing ourselves.
Evan, I think you have to nominate someone.
Yeah, good point. I see Brenda down on my screen there, and I don't think she's gone yet. Brenda?
I can start my video. I'm trying to have lunch and get ready to do interviews. So I'm Brenda Stead, and hi, Bridge, how are you? Haven't seen you for a while. Yes, I'm past president of CES New Brunswick for 2 terms, and I've been on the national board for, oh, I hate to admit it now, I'm getting old, 3 rounds on the national board. So I was there from the beginning of developing the PDP and the CE designation, and worked on the national standards with the Joint Education Committee in the States, Canada, US Joint Committee, and just about everything else that's happened in the last 15 years. So I have had a diverse career, I guess. I'm born in Canada, but I lived in Europe, and I did a lot of work overseas with embassies and on government-to-government exchanges, because I worked for the feds in Ottawa for a long time. I was director of what was then research, which was often experimental research or quasi-experimental research, and evaluation, and also quality service, which had to do a lot with the field office delivery of programs and services, which was really interesting to try to lead some evaluation for. So I did a lot of work. I was on assignment with the Treasury Board at one time as well. And like I said, I think I've lived in and worked in 7 provinces or territories in my life in Canada and the United States and Middle East and Russia. So even Siberia. So there you go. So other than that, I just find evaluation carries anywhere, and I do teach evaluation some through UNB, and at distance now, of course, through other mechanisms. I have a psychology background in education, so and I'm an HR person as well. So I'm doing a lot of organizational change and things like that. That seems to be my focus with COVID because of all the stress management and people working from home. And so really doing a lot of work on that end of things, less so on evaluation right now, but I think that will come back more as there's a lot of federal money going out to provinces now. And I don't know what the evaluation plans are going to be like, but I'm sure at some point before the next federal election, somebody will have to be evaluating some of those things. So watch out for some of that to happen.
Would you like to nominate someone to introduce themselves?
Oh, who has not gone yet? Was Florence? Who's CES Nova Scotia? Is that Nancy? Who is CES Nova Scotia on there? Do you know?
Maybe it's Karen Lawson signed in, or is that Andrea Lisa signed in? Is Karen here? Oh, there's Karen. Maybe Karen could introduce.
Okay.
It's Elaine, but hi,
Elaine,
and I'm just the special tech behind the scenes, so happy to be here, and it's very interesting. So thank you so much for letting me at least sit in and enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, well, great. So if anyone else, I feel like Karen Hicks hasn't really said a lot about herself. And of course I haven't, but nah.
Karen Hicks, that's what I meant. I'm mixing
Yeah.
Karen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Karen.
Karen, do you want to hop on just for a second? Because you are one of the most interesting people I know.
Might be muted.
Karen said she has connection problems, so maybe she lost her connection.
Okay. Well, I won't start
Andrea,
telling
Lisa,
anecdotes.
you can go ahead. Andrea, Lisa, you can go ahead.
Okay. I could start telling anecdotes about the amazing things that Karen Hicks has been involved in, and why I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity to have coffee with her and Sandra basically every Wednesday morning, unless we're having a webinar, for the last, I guess it's been over a year now. And so as I get to know these two new friends and colleagues, aspects of their life outside of what we know through their professional life, we start learning about each other. And then what I tend to see in the friendships that I develop with volunteers that I'm working with is that everything that we care about, everything that we experience in our life has everything to do with how we approach our work and our work with other people. And our understanding of ourselves is absolutely predictive of our ability to connect and understand other people. And so I struggle a little bit with even introducing myself. I too came back to Canada 15 years ago. I lived and worked in Germany for 10 years. And when I came back to Canada, I came back realizing that I had been told a story of my country that was incomplete and inaccurate and harmful. And I'm really touched by the generosity of African Canadians and Indigenous Canadians who have tolerated my ignorance and helped me know where to look, to listen and learn in a way that doesn't add burden and helps me be more useful. And so I guess in terms of my background, I did grow up here in Nova Scotia on a farm with a father who actually taught evaluation. So I'm second generation evaluator. And my first actual official evaluation project was in grade 9 for a science fair, and I won, which was the first social science experiment, I think, to ever be introduced, let alone win a science fair in my school. Yeah, for me, it's inconceivable to actually say anything that I'm doing and then say, oh, but it's not evaluation, because evaluation is absolutely through every cell and every thought and everything that I do. And in some ways that would maybe even make me, sometimes I get imposter syndrome, because I think, how long has it been since I actually did an evaluation, right? Because most of the time I'm just having these evaluative conversations and building relationships that have everything, I think, to do with defining value and agreeing on criteria and communicating thinking. So and I see that as where we need to go even more. And so that's and so when I look at our National Strategic Plan and our 3 pillars of and elevate the profession, engage our membership, and do advocacy. And I'm hesitating because I think we're not just engaging our membership, but in the advocacy, there's a lot of engagement as well. And as Nancy mentioned, so that the folks that we're building relationships may or may not become members, but that we're having those partnerships. So in those 3 pillars, there's almost a matrix, because we also have 3 core values, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, environmental sustainability, and the seamless member experience. So in our remaining time, is there anything that you want to speak to about those things?
Myself, you're asking me or anybody else who has. Well, I see that we are working on all the priorities that we mentioned in the strategic plan, and not just we mentioned it. It came into the consultation and the discussion with members and the different groups involved in CES. Fellows, chapter leads, PDF representatives, the working group leads. So these are the ideas that we had consensus should be our priorities. We should work on these, and these are the guiding principles that if we focus on developing and working on more in the future, we are going to reach what we are aiming from these reach these the outcome of expected outcome from these priorities. I mean, the profession, we are an organization that works on offering professional development in different ways to our members, and this should be our image, our promotion to attract members. So all three priorities speak to each other's. There is a lot of overlap among the three, and it's good to capitalize on this overlap and use it to promote each of the three priorities. The second one, engaging the members. Yes, we need to attract. It has an outreach component. We need to get more members. We need to get known in our respective communities. And we also have a category of international members. Why not? Why we're always looking at Canada? It is the Canadian Evaluation Society, I know, but Canada can be a pioneer in helping people who wants to be evaluators. Canada attracts immigrants, a large number of immigrants every year. Why can't we? This can be a category of people who knows about Canada from us, so we can be a voice for Canada. Also, I mean, the third thing is to advocate among the users of evaluation and any other sister organization that is not per se focusing on evaluation, but maybe focusing on performance measurement, focusing on equity, diversity in certain communities or so on. We can benefit from being members, learning from all the professional development opportunities that we offer around equity, diversity, and inclusion and sustainability. I see this as ongoing. We might be doing well in certain priority more than others, but there's always conversation, there's always discussion, there's always volunteers that should help. We should mobilize the volunteer force to help us develop each of these priorities. I see that we sometimes forget that we have a large number or a pool of volunteers who are standing at the door and willing to help. And when we are all busy doing our jobs, it's a volunteer organization, right? When we're all busy doing our jobs, we tend not to focus on, okay, I can actually send a call for volunteers to help here or there. And that's what I encourage each chapter to make use of the power of the volunteers in developing their agenda, and not to just count on the members sitting at the table of the boards if we are keen on developing on our priorities equally. For the guiding principles, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and sustainability, we have been lately talking with the chapter presidents and the leads of the working group, and Andrea Lisa is one of them for sustainability, about changing the current structure of having working groups work on these guiding principles, and thinking of a way of weaving in these principles in all our operations. So the whole point of having a working group work on a certain aspect or a principle or guidance is it's a time. The idea for working group is a time limited exercise or a time limited governance structure to do a certain mission, and then usually it dissolves. But we don't want to dissolve our work on sustainability or equity, diversity, and inclusion. We want it to be included in every single thing we're doing. This should be the guiding principles as we claimed in our strategic plan. It is. And there will be consultation going on first with the working group leaders about how they see from an expert eye we can weave in these practices in all our operations, how we should start, what are the challenges that we are highly likely to face, and what could be possible mitigation techniques. We need also to manage expectations about when we are going to have it fully weaved in all in our operations. Again, things happen in phases. We are volunteer organizations. The good intention to weave in these principles into our practice is there, and it's one of my priority as a president, as I mentioned in my letter. And it's just a matter of managing the expectations of the members and of the chapter boards and leads that we are here. We're working on that together. You're going to hear from us. We're going to start a consultation about weaving these principles via the leads of the working group. Then we are going to go to the chapters, presidents and chapter boards to answer the same question and give us their respective point of view, because equity diversity from a maritime chapter perspective might differ from a Quebec chapter, from Ontario chapter. For them, they need to engage how they want to engage. What does the population they want to engage look like? And we would like to make sure that we incorporate the perspective of every chapter in that respect. If we are keen in actually weaving in equity diversity properly, it should not be a top-down approach. It should be a communicative, consultative approach. And for having a good service to members. Definitely, that's our third guiding principle. We are aware of certain challenges sometimes in our IT platforms, on our services. Sometimes there are delays and so, but we are also having a very good leads on board. Scott has provided great services with Migram to control any glitches in the systems, and I think so far our systems are helping our members as it should. It's not the fancy system. We would like in the future to develop a fancy system, but so far I think we have good people working behind the scenes. We have good employees from Migram that we selected actually to serve our members. So I think we are on the right track in that aspect, and pardon us if there are any glitches in the communication or the website or anything like that. Any problem, please bring it over to Scott's attention. He's awesome in responding to the needs of members. So yeah, and we always, the door is open. If there is any suggestions about improvement in any of the work we are doing, if there is any need for communication about doing things differently, I'm a type of person who like to shake the status quo always. There's nothing that cannot change, nothing that cannot be challenged. Everything can be challenged. So please feel free to share your opinions freely, and I'm reachable by email, organizing a meeting, whichever you prefer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doaa. Is there anybody who would like to ask questions based on that? Otherwise, I do have two final questions that I would put out, but I'd like to hold them until anybody else who has a question gets a chance to ask it.
I did have one question. So it's around evaluation in provincial governments, provincial and territorial governments. I did say I was an employee of the provincial government, so this is something that's on my mind often. An article came out in CJPE this year, and it was about evaluation in the provincial and territorial governments, kind of a snapshot of what's happening. There were some not so rosy findings, that there's a lack of resources for evaluation, almost no evaluation policies, and that higher priority is given to internal audits, performance measurement, those sorts of things. And also a perceived lack of understanding among senior officials about evaluation. So yeah, definitely some challenges going on there. I was curious what sort of role you see national playing in this issue. And I guess it kind of comes back to that advocacy piece, but yeah, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that. more specific aspects?
I think there is it's our role as the advocates of evaluation in Canada, and not just national. I mean, as I said, national is ready to collaborate with any chapter to mitigate any risk at the local level. And you guys know your context more than me, so I'm not aware of what are the real challenges facing evaluation in the maritime chapters or the maritime area, right? So I would like to hear from you, and if there is any advocacy related activities that we can meet with seniors. How can we promote evaluation, the importance of evaluation? How can we invite them? Our upcoming conference is about the use of evaluation. Maybe that's a venue to invite them, that we are a believer that evaluation has a use, right? And what is this use? People are usually, I mean, decision makers and government people at all levels sometimes do not really understand. It's not like they are against evaluation, they don't get it. What is the benefit? I'm investing resources in this function. What am I getting in return? And I must say that as evaluate, you say that audits always get the priority for investment of resources. That's everywhere, because I'm afraid auditors are better than us in promoting their credentials. They have worldwide accepting certification and credentials that is acknowledged worldwide, not just in Canada. And people like to deal with people who have some certificates next to them that is acknowledged international. They also have international guidelines for who should work as an auditor and who should not. You are not allowed to do auditing unless you are getting some level of education. But the fact that we can train anyone to be an evaluator, that can sometimes, I see it sometimes that, okay, yeah, anyone can do evaluation. No, by the way, not everyone can do evaluation. You have to have a skill set, but we don't market this. That's from an evaluation in Canada perspective. But as a CES, we do have a role to play. We do have an advocacy function in our work. We do have experts in every chapter, local areas, and every chapter knows their challenges. Develop an advocacy plan that's discussed as national and the chapter, and let's see if we can meet as the face of the organization with certain policy makers to talk about why do we need something like the policy on results at the federal level, at the provincial level? Yes or no? What are the pros and cons for that? Do policymakers at the provincial level would like to benefit from the policy on results? To what extent they can make use of it if they don't have the resources to develop their own policy on results? Something like that. It's just, yeah, go ahead.
That's a fantastic suggestion, to look at adaptation of umbrella commitments for a more local context as an efficiency measure, and also to learn from the limitations or the fail shorts that are so well documented at the federal level. So we are running out of time. So I want to thank you so much. There's been a lot of positive feedback in the chat box, and we will be saving the chat box. So please, if you have any questions that didn't get addressed, put them in there so that we can follow up. I have two questions that we'll maybe talk about later in follow-up, and that is the relationship between CES and AEA, and the relationship between CES and Treasury Board Secretariat, because I know you've been working and developing those as part of your advocacy. We are working as chapters on a strategic communication plan. So your invitation for us to be thinking about who do we want to build relationships and how to engage with you in doing that is very welcome. So next Wednesday we have a Toronto-based evaluator, Yasser Ismail, who is the head of evaluation for an HIV-focused hospital. And he'll be talking about GBA Plus in his practice and his skin in the game, his personal commitment and his background, and how he brings that into his work. So, so Doaa, thank you so much for your generous, open accessibility today, and sharing with chapters some insights into what's happening nationally.
Thank you so much. And as I said, it's not limited to one meeting. Whenever you have any question or would like to recall a meeting to discuss anything, happy to be there and happy to participate with you. Thank you so much for the invitation and for the smiley faces.
Fantastic. And stay safe and have a wonderful season coming up. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.